Let's start from where we left yesterday. We did this quiz and we said the answer for this one is Hindus don't worship idols. It's the closest correct choice, is what we said. So one of the questions which came is primarily centered around, couple of options here. One is truth is one, paths are many. Then all religions are simply different paths to the same God. And even the point 7, all religions lead to the same goal. There is a very strong notion, I would even call it as a belief, that religions are just expressions to reach the same God. So the manifestation of religion is based on which culture it came from. Therefore, a Westerner called it as Jesus is the God, somebody else called Allah as the God. So all religions are same, they all have same goal. It is all one God, just that people gave different names to this God. So Hinduism also gives a different name called Ishvara and all that. Therefore, it is one God. It's all in heaven, one God is there and everybody gives a different name. So there is no difference technically. It's all same, just why unnecessarily into the debates of religion. Just you call it with whatever name you want. That should be fine because all religions are same. This is considered as what Hinduism teaches. Okay, not only it's a common belief amongst Hindus. Okay, it is not if you go to a devout Christian or Muslim or Buddhist, they don't say this. This belief is primarily with Hindus. And the basis for this, somebody quoted this also and asked a question, that's why I'm getting into this, is a very famous quote from Veda. It is Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti. You can search for this, whoever doesn't know this, they can search for this sentence, you Google it, you will find it. And here the way it is interpreted, Sat is taken as Satyam, truth. Ekam means one. Vipraha means learned people. Literally it means Brahmanaha, but it generally is taken as wise people. Bahuda means in many form. Vadanti means they tell. So the way it is interpreted is, there is one truth and many people, wise people call it in different ways. Okay, that is how it is interpreted. So I have given this meaning. I just picked up some quotes from the internet. This is what they say. Truth is one, but same is called by wise people by different names. The truth is one, same thing. Then there is somebody else has written, verse is reminding us that there are many paths that lead to God. And people use different names and forms while explaining it. Irrespective of the apparent deviations, the core is the same. We shall give more importance to the spiritual experience and shall not restrict ourselves to our point of view. This is another quote. Okay, there was one more quote. It is not good to feel that one's own religion alone is true and all others are false. God is one only and not two. Different people call on him by different names. Some as Allah, some as God, and others as Krishna, Shiva, and Brahma. Okay, so there are two things we need to look at. One is whatever is stated here. Do we accept this statement, right? before we do that, the other point we need to see is this Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti is saying this? We need to first understand that, because all religions are different, all that we already spoke at length in the last few days. The question that came was, hey, we have this Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti, which is a famous expression, but what you are saying is not aligned to the understood meaning of this Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti is what was told, right? Was the question. Let's get to this. This Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti comes in the Rig Veda. For those who know Sanskrit, these are like some 5 verses I have picked up from one chapter 164th section. If you see the 46th text here, it says that Indram Mitram Varuna Magnimaha Puratho Divyas Sasu Parno Gurutmaan Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadantyagnim Yamam Tariswa Namahu. That is the verse, the 4th one here. So I don't want to go into context of all the previous verses, it will take a lot of time. But just get to this verse. The quote appears in Rig Veda, like I said, 164:46. It says, Indram, Mitram, Varunam, Agnim, Ahuhu, Ato Divyaha, Saha Suparnaha, Gurutmane, Ekam, Sat Vipra, Bahuda Vadanti, Agnim, Yamam, Matariswanam, Ahuhu. This is the verse. Literally, if you translate it, it says there is only one Sadvastu. This Sadvastu is manifest in the form of Indra, Mitra, Varuna, Agni, Yama, Matarishwan, and all this as called by the sages. We have to understand first what is this Sat. Then only this Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti you can understand. The general translation that is being done here is Sat means Satyam. Sat means truth. Is that itself correct? Okay, but so Sadeva Satyam, there is a phrase. Sat alone is Satyam. It is used in the text. Now, when they use this term Sat is Satyam, then Satyam qualifies this Sat. I know it is going little deep, but just bear with me for 2-3 minutes, because without understanding this, you can't understand this Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. Okay. Here Satya means the status of what that Sat is. Is it true or false? I'll give you an example. Okay, heaven is truth. Suppose I say existence of a heaven is truth. So truth is a word used to tell me the status of the heaven. So, correct? Is it a truth or is it false? It doesn't mean heaven means truth. That's not what it is. It says heaven has a status of being a truth. Similarly, here Sadeva Satyam means Sat is alone is the truth. Okay. Now we can't say Sat means truth. It says the status of Sat is that it is truth. It is not false. Now what is this Sat? We have to understand. In Chandogya Upanishad, the Sat is defined. Sadeva Saumya Idamagra Asit Ekameva Advidiyam. It is the context in which this Tattvamasi comes. Okay. Now Chandogya Upanishad defines Sat as the truth of this Jagat. The very essence of this world was in the form of Sat, and that Sat alone manifested into this world. So Sat is almost equivalent to Bhagavan. That is what is Chandogya Upanishad telling about what is this Sat. Okay. So you have to now understand. Only thing I want you to take away from this, leaving everything else, Sat does not mean truth. Sat means that which is the cause of this Jagat. Okay. Now, in that context, one more important aspect we have to understand in Sanskrit. The Sanskrit as a language, the word position in a sentence doesn't matter. The Anvayam is what actually brings the words together to give you a meaning. I'll tell you an example. In English, suppose I say, Lakshmana followed Rama. Lakshmana followed Rama. It has one meaning. Now I say Rama followed Lakshmana. It has a totally different meaning. Why? Because the position has changed. In Sanskrit, the position doesn't matter because within the word itself, whatever is said by the position is inbuilt. Okay, I'll give you this example. Grihe Shishuhu Kshiram Pibati. In the house, the child is drinking milk. Okay. Now this you can put it any which way. You can say Shishuhu Grihe Kshiram Pibati, Kshiram Grihe Shishu Pibati, Pibati Grihe Shishuhu Kshiram. Doesn't matter. There are 24 possibilities, all of which will mean the same. It won't mean that the house is drinking milk. It will always mean that in the house the child is drinking milk. Okay, that is because so you need to put the word and understand it properly. Now, with all this background, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, if you really look at it, what it is trying to say is the Sadvastu Ekam is that one Ekam. See, this Ekameva Advitiyam I already told. Sat always goes with Ekameva Advitiyam. Okay, here also if you see, Sadeva Saumya Idam Agrasi Ekam Eva Advitiyam. So this Ekam Sat is there in Chandogya also. Okay, it's not that Ekam Sat Bhagada Vipra Bhagada Vadanti is only in Rigveda. This Ekam Sat is used in Chandogya also. This one Vastu means one reality of this, that which has become this Jagat. You can call it as Ishvara or God or Brahman or whatever, is Ekam. And that Ekam is what is manifest as Bahuda. Okay, it is the one which is manifest as many. And Chandogya says the same thing. Sadeva idam agra asit ekameva dvityam. It was existing before this creation as a single entity, but once this world is there, it has manifested as many. That is what this Chandogya also says. It is the same thing. The other verse also says, Ekam Sat Bahuda iti Vipra Vadanti. And that is what is in this also. This Indram, Mitram, Varunam, all of this is nothing but the same God. That is what is meant. It is not like all paths lead to the same reality or all gods are only different name. It is fine so long as the understanding of the God is the same. We don't have a problem. But when I see, we also call the same Bhagavan as Shiva, as Vishnu, as Subramanya, as Ganesha, whatever. So if you want to call it as some other name, there is no problem. But the understanding of Bhagavan itself, if it is different, then we have an issue, right? If the understanding is this Bhagavan is one person and only if you believe then you will go to heaven, all those things is where the connotations of what is Bhagavan is where we have a problem, because that is a wrong understanding, or at least an understanding which is opposed to what our dharma is saying, right? What is right and wrong also you leave. If you want to believe that is the right, that is also fine. But you can't say both are same, because they both mean very different things. Okay? So that's what I wanted to talk about it, because it is very important. You keep hearing this Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, because that is a very commonly used thing. That's why I had put those three things there so that I can clarify on this. Okay, now we will move to some of the other things. I think we were somewhere here. Okay, so I think we were here, right? So I told you about this story of how Mahabharata was composed, and Ganesha actually did the work of a scribe. But the message I was trying to convey here was there was no need. So he could have done a miracle to just have the Mahabharata happen, right? But that's not what Bhagavan did. Why? Because to show the importance of the knowledge being carried forward, right? In the form of scripture, in the form of. So whatever Vyasa was writing was about dharma. It is not about God, right? In fact, mostly Mahabharata about dharma, about also Bhagavan, right? That's why the Bhagavan himself came and then became a scribe. And I mentioned about gender not being a hindrance. So there is one story, very famous story in Upanishads, where there is a sambhashana, samvada, where the Rishi Patni and Rishi talk about whether the wealth that is there can give liberation or not. And that samvada is recorded, okay, as part of Upanishad. So there is no such respect in our culture. So I'll give you one more example, but what I'm trying to say is, in the culture, when it comes to knowledge, there is no disparity, or there is no difference between who teaches and who learns in the context of gender or in the context of age. And another very interesting thing is, always there was debate or samvada. So what you are seeing here, some of you may know, some of you may not know. Okay, so I will spend 2-3 minutes on this. Who you see here on the right side is Shankara Bhagavad, you know that, right? Most of you should. And on the left is one person called Mandana Mishra. Okay, so they both have had a very different interpretation of Veda. Okay, why different? This Mandana Mishra who was called Mimamsaka, and Mimamsakas generally say that Veda itself is a means of knowledge, like Vedantis also say, but the only difference is that there is no liberation or there is no Ishvara. Okay, that is what they believed in. Okay? That is their point of view. And Shankara's point of view, which is what we today call as Advaita Vedanta, is that there is Ishvara, and that Ishvara is the one who gives the fruits for your action, and is the one who is a creator, destructor, and all of the Jagat. Now they have very different point of view. How do they resolve? Is always through samvada. This incident is when Shankara asks for a Vada Bhiksha, like, I want to have a debate with you, he asks. Okay, and then they go for a debate. So the question was, who is the judge to tell who is the winner and who loses? Okay, so they wanted to have a good judge. So who can judge this, right? Interestingly, they both agreed this Mandana Mishra's wife herself can be the judge. So even Shankara didn't have a problem. And the condition was, if Shankara loses the debate, he will leave his sannyasa, get married, and become a Mimamsaka. And if Mandana Mishra loses the debate, he would become a sannyasi and go with Shankara. Okay, such is the agreement. Will any wife agree to be a judge for this kind of a thing? And even if the wife agrees, will someone like Shankara believe the wife? Because the wife wouldn't want the husband to become a sannyasi, right? Naturally. So the inclination is she will be biased, right? That is what people will think. But then neither of them had a problem with that. So she became the judge. And then the story goes that she puts one garland in each one's neck, and then she says, whichever you know um, leaves fall off first is the one who is losing and all that. So finally, Mandamitra and he becomes sannyasi and all. There is just the story goes like that. But what I am trying to say, two important points. Number one, any kind of points of view in our culture was only debated and resolved. Okay, so you have to win over the other point of view if you have to establish yours. That is the importance of the culture, sampradaya of passing the knowledge, where it is always through a dialogue. That is number one. Number two, women had an equal or more than equal role in many contexts in our culture. It's not that they didn't think that, hey, this is a lady, what will she know about Shastra? See, they are doing the Shastra debate, Samvada, and they were okay to have this housewife to be adjudicating. So those are few things that we should understand about the way our system was. This is another very interesting picture where Shankara and Vedavyasa actually met. The story is Vyasa comes and debates with Shankaracharya and challenge him whether he didn't even come in his form. He just took a different form and came, and he argued with Shankara whether Advaita is, and then Shankara wins over, and then Vyasa shows his form and blesses. Yeah, I know what you have done is right, but to show it to the world, I took this form. I totally agree with what you are doing and all that. So this is the story. Again, you have to understand here, he didn't just come and do a miracle, or generally see Vyasa has a big status in our culture, right? He could have just said, I agree with Shankara, so you all follow him. So he could have said that, right? But he didn't say. He came and he enacted a drama to make sure that whatever Shankara is trying to say is actually established. So again, what it shows is the importance of Samvada. Yesterday I spoke a little bit about this, right? Again, there is a general belief that we are very class-based society, and we don't respect certain set of people and all. So here you see this Manisha Panchakam. When it comes to knowledge, there is no discrimination about who learns from whom and all that. Okay, so that would be social structures could have been. Okay, we are not getting into those debates. We are not getting into those. What I'm saying is, when it comes to knowledge, irrespective of what was, there was always this view that knowledge is above everything else. So the shloka is that Jagrat Sapna Susuktishu Sputatara Ya Samvid Ujrimbate Ya Brahmadi Pipili Kantanushu Prota Jagat Sakshini Sayeva Aham Acha Drishyavasvati Dhritrajnapi Yasyasti Chet Chandalostu Dvijostu Guruhu Ityesham Desham. It doesn't matter who this person is. He's a man, he's a woman, he's a child, he's a beggar, he's the one who eats dogs. Doesn't matter, as long as this person has the vision that all that is here is Jagrat Swapna Sushuktishu, in the waken, dream and deep sleep. Whatever obtains in all these states, that when I am sleeping or when I am dreaming or whenever I am awake, whatever obtains in those states, in all the three states of my being, whether it is waken or whether it is deep sleep or it is in the dream, if somebody has this view that all the way from Brahma to the ant is all pervaded by this Bhagavan. That kind of a person who is a jnani becomes a guru, irrespective of whether this person is a Chandala or is a Dvija or is a child or is a lady, it doesn't matter. Like that, there is the shloka. So you can read this. It's called Manisha Panchaka. Okay. Okay. Then let's go to this. Just one last point on this knowledge tradition, right? If you can imagine, in those days, we didn't have a print, we didn't have all this computers, internet, emails, obviously, right? Not even, any means for somebody to send letters, send books. So nothing was there, right? And how did they preserve so much of knowledge? So there were multiple things. Okay, they created a big oral tradition. Okay, the oral tradition, not just chanting. See, chanting is one thing, right? What Jaishankarji also spoke about, right? How to keep the text. See, how they chanted Rigveda, Yajurveda 1500 years ago is the same way they are chanting it today. Okay, how is it possible? Because they created this Padam, Kramam, Jata, and all this way by which the purity of each of the word and the combination of words is kept intact by repeating the same. So they will, this Ganam he spoke about, I think in one of the classes, is how you use the word in forward backward movement. So if take 3 or 4 words and then you just chant it in a way that you arrive at different combinations so that you can protect the sanctity or accuracy of each of the word and the combination, right? So that is one thing. And also the oral traditions, they created what are called sutras. Okay, sutra is a text which is alpaksharam, asandigdham, saravati vishwatomukam. So they will create using minimal syllables and giving loaded meanings. So they will create, so this whole grammar was created in the form of Panini Sutras. The sutras are a cryptic way to actually tell the whole grammar in very minimal amount of text. Why was it needed? Because they had to be memorized and preserved. They didn't write down and preserve, right? So if you have to memorize, you have to bring it down to the very minimum. So that is why if you see a lot of our texts are around how can we keep it going, right? That is very important. That's why even shlokas were written with meter. Okay, Mahabharata has meter, Bhagavad Gita has meter, right? All this chandas, Trishtup, Anushtup and all that, because it becomes very easy for you to actually repeat and memorize. So see, even today people will just chant Bhagavad Gita, the entire 700 odd verses without even looking at the book. Many people do, even some of you children would have also done that, right? It is because it has been created in a way that it is easy to memorize. So that's how the society was all about learning. And even this Vyakarana, I'll tell you one more, right? This Vyakarana, for example, there was they call the commentary as Bhashyam, okay? A commentary on this Vyakarana Sutra, right? The Vyakarana Sutra was written by Panini, who was from Lahore in today's Pakistan. And the Bhashyam, the commentary, was written by somebody sitting in Chidambaram called Patanjali, somewhere in Viluppuram district. Okay. And the person who took it and then further is called Gaudapada. He was from Bengal. Bengalis were called that Gauda Desha. Bengal is called Gauda Desha, right? The person who came and took it, and then there is a story that Ajabakshitam, some of the portions were eaten by goat and all that. So you can see how the knowledge was preserved in our setup. People used to, how did somebody in Chidambaram know about a Vyakarana Sutram written by somebody like thousands of miles away when there was not even any mode of communication in those days, right? And he wrote that, and somebody else takes it to West Bengal and then popularizes it, right? So it is because of the tradition of knowledge. So everything, we were a knowledge-centered society. So you need to understand this thing. So it is not about when somebody says Hinduism is a dogmatic God. No, God and all that is, we are not a faith-based thing, right? Our focus was always about knowing, knowledge. Okay, so so the focus on God and worship. So I will summarize. These are the questions I asked, right? Is there, but not for everyone, right? Guides people on right and wrong. I already told that Samanya Dharma is known to everyone. The basic right and wrong doesn't need to be taught, right? Caste is very alien to our society, right? Caste was much later created. Varna is very different from that. We are not getting into it now, but you should actually understand that, learn about it, and then focus on learning and teaching. We have spent a lot of time. Rituals and practices, do's and don'ts. So we will come to rituals, right? But rituals are meaningful, okay, to help you in understanding, cognizing Bhagavan better. So that is how rituals have to be looked at. So we will talk a little bit today. I don't know if we will have time. Again, heaven, we also have our heavens, right? We have our Bhuloka, Bhuvarloka, then we have Kailasa, everything we talk about, right? But then we have a different way of looking at it. We don't say it is a eternal heaven or eternal hell. We say just like you get this human body, just like you get maybe some other body like a lion or a cow or whatever, you can also get Swarga if you want. Okay, you do this kind of whatever karma, and then you can reach heaven. But once that punya gets over, you will come back. That is how we define heaven. It's not that eternal heaven, you believe in a particular God, you can always be in heaven from that point onwards. We don't talk like that. Okay, so there is a difference. But again, it's only for those who seek. It is not the only goal. In most of the theologies, heaven is the only thing, right? The whole theology is about how can you go to heaven. So we say you can go to heaven, but heaven also is not a solution for your problem, is how we look at it. Okay, so it is very different. And there is no true God, this and that, right? This is how the God looks, all that. So we are not a theology. Forms of worship. So rishis have suggested forms, but it is up to you, right? So there is no, it doesn't say you only have to use this form. So there's no specific instructions. Okay. Yeah, this is another thing. Okay, this is very interesting because many people nowadays, see, one thing I'll tell you, wherever there is a possibility, there is always a of doing the right thing. There is always a possibility of misuse, okay, misconduct. So if there is a good doctor, there are always doctors who are not good, right? Or even intentionally not good. Same with lawyers. So like that, if there are issues with certain people, that doesn't take away the fact that you need a guru. Okay. So this God and us, this is a very interesting thing, right? This statement itself means God is a person, I am a person, so I don't need a conduit between God and me. That is how we take. And they think that hey, some people are coming and exploiting this. Why do I need somebody between God and us? Okay. This is acceptable if God is a person. And if God has to be only prayed to, and the God has to, bless you with something so that you attain moksha, this can be true. But we already said God is not one person, right? We have told this, right? It is not one somebody sitting in heaven, right? We said all that is here is Bhagavan. So the God is, I'm replacing it with Bhagavan, right? All that is here is Bhagavan. And when I say all that is here is Bhagavan, it includes me, this body, this mind, everything. It can't leave me out. Now, what will I ask if somebody tells me this? My question will be, how can I be God? See, you can tell everything here is God, that is fine. That at least I can believe in you. Okay, maybe it is all connected like atoms make up everything. But when it says I am God, I cannot say yeah, I believe, right? So the question will be, can you prove it to me? Right? That's what Vivekananda asked Ramakrishna, right? So your question will be, how come I don't know this? That's what I'll ask, right? If it has to be true, then I should know. See, I cannot know about this wall. I cannot know about this towel, right? But I cannot say I don't know me. That will be difficult for me to digest. Either I should say you are wrong, I can't be God, or I have to say how come you are saying that I need to know. Right? Then the question will be about knowing. It is not about believing. The moment I say God is in heaven, it is about belief. But the moment I say God is you, that is not about belief. Then you have to either dismiss it or you have to understand it. There are only two choices. Right? If you have to understand, if you have to recognize, then you need a teaching. Whoever is telling you that you are God has to show. That's why I said there is a difference between preaching and teaching. I am not preaching, I am not asking you to believe. I am saying you see that God doesn't leave you out and everything here is God, including you. If I say that, if you want to dismiss, hey, this guy is all gas, you can walk away, right? Doesn't matter. But if you think that, hey, he can't be telling this without a basis, then your question should to me should be, how come I don't know? Can you make me see it? The moment you tell me this and I start telling you how God is, you are non-different from God, then the teaching has already started, isn't it? So if that is the case, then can you say no person is needed between us? Actually, there is nobody in between you and God, because what this person is saying is you are God. So this person is needed only to show that you are God. Okay. Even if you want, you are not separate from God, you can't be separate from Bhagavan. But notionally, I am separate because I don't recognize. See, suppose I search for this headphone. Okay. I don't, I have put it on. I'm just talking to you. I don't recognize where it is. I keep searching where is my headphone, earphone, or whatever you call it. I keep searching here and there. So somebody sees this. He says, hey, earphone is with you. Now I say, no, I don't have earphone. Where is earphone? It's not there. Then that person comes and shows that, hey, this is your earphone. Was there any distance between you and this earphone before you knew this, or before I knew this? No, there was no distance. After I know this also, there is no distance. In fact, I never had lost this earphone at all. But by knowledge, I was away. By ignorance, I was away. Right? Now, because by ignorance I was away, I need a knowledge to know this. And somebody has to give this knowledge because I am not able to recognize this at this time. So that is what we call as simple. Right? You can understand that. Now, you can say this person is between me and this headphone because I was not having this knowledge. This person came in between to give me this knowledge. So there was this person in between me and this headphone is one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is there is never any person in between me and this headphone, right? Similarly, actually there is no need for anybody between you and Bhagavan because you are Bhagavan. But then you need somebody between you and Bhagavan to give this knowledge, because by the knowledge, by the ignorance you are separated, and somebody comes to remove that, and that removal has to happen by an independent means of knowing. There is a necessity. You can't know it by yourself. So there is a reason, because it is about you. You already presupposes who you are. Therefore, that has to be removed, that ignorance has to be removed by an independent means. Therefore, someone is needed. So, teaching tradition has, there is no alternate to teaching and learning. That is what Guru Shishya Sampradaya has to be there. Therefore, this no person is needed. For brokering, you don't need, but to give knowledge, you need. So, I think this is a question. So, most of you know now, but why don't you answer this? Which is the source book of Sanatana Dharma? Bhagavad Gita, Yoga Sutra, Agamas, Tantras, Shruti, Smriti, no source book. Mahabharata, Ramayana, Upanishad, Vedanta, Garuda Purana, Bhagavata Purana, Vishnu Sahasranama. These are the choices. So, these are the choices. Perfect answer. So the answer is Shruti. Some people can also say Vedanta, but Vedanta is only part of Shruti. Okay. So every text is, all these are valid texts, right? There is no debate. But what is the source is the question. So the source means what? The other text should be based on this text. Then it is a source, right? So generally, all these other texts, they explicitly also say that they are following what is already revealed in Shruti. Okay, Shruti and Smriti typically are considered together called as Veda. The difference between Shruti and Smriti, I think Jaishankar ji touched upon it. So, okay, let me ask you one more question because they are, before I explain this Shruti and Smriti, why don't you answer this? So I'm going to ask this. Why don't you answer this? The question is, which time period did Veda Vyasa compose the Vedas? 1800 BC, 1200 BC, 1000 BC, 800 BC. I mean, or did not compose. Okay, good. I think this is almost everybody is correct. Oh, someone who says 1800. Fine. So the word composed is the key here, right? It is not when it was, collected. So that is where. So we Rishayaha mantra drashtaraha. So Rishayaha mantra drashtaraha. The rishis are the ones, even by the term rishi, they mean that they saw the mantras. Okay. So during their deep state, they heard these mantras. That is our belief. Okay. That is why it is called Apaurishayam. In fact, they themselves, when they created some other mantras by themselves, they say this is Smriti. This is Yajnavalkya Smriti. Means Yajnavalkya composed this, he says. But the Shruti mantras, they don't claim that they are creators. They themselves say, we heard. Okay. That's why it's called Shrutam. Shrutam means they heard. In Tamil also, it is called as Yelda Kilavi. It is never written down. The Veda is called, Shruti is called Apaurushayam. Paurusham, Purusha means person, not man, person. Okay, human. Rishayaha, mantra drashtaraha, Shruti is Apaurushayam. Purusha means person. Okay, Paurushayam means created by an intellect. Okay. Apaurushaya means it was not created by any intellect which is within the world. Whatever they heard, they just gave it. That is why some of it is very difficult to even understand because they just heard and gave it. Okay. So Shruti is not considered as a composition. Forget Veda Vyasa. Even other rishis also, they don't say they have composed it. So then what did Veda Vyasa do? He only classified Veda. because these mantras were seen by many rishis, it was scattered all over. So he brought them all together and classified them into 4 Vedas. That is what he did. That is why he was called Vedavyasa. His name was Krishna Dvaipayana and all that. He had some 2-3 names. But Vedavyasa is a name given because he did this work. Now let's go back to this Shruti. Okay. So Shruti then is what was heard by the rishis was called Shruti. And that is the root. So it was given by who then? If it was seen by rishis in the creation, that means it was given by Bhagavan only. Okay. Yeah. So the source book is Shruti. And Smriti also is Veda because it is the same rishis who saw these mantras. They wrote this based on what they recollected from Shruti. That's why it's called Smriti. These two become the source. All other works, even Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, all these are based on what Shruti has given. Actually, Upanishad and Vedanta are same and they are part of Shruti. So we will talk about those later, but Shruti or Veda is what is the source. And Kalidasa actually says that Shruti and other texts follow Shruti. So too in Raghuvamsa he says this Nandini Pashu was followed. So he says, so they generally Shruti, all the Hindu texts follow what Shruti says. Okay, so the source book, that's why is Shruti. Okay, so these are the key texts in our parampara. The 4 Vedas naturally are the key. And then you have Smritis. I think Jaishankar ji spoke a lot about Vedanga, Supanga and all that. So they all come under Smriti and Yagyavalkya Smriti and all that. And Puranas, this is where all the different deities, forms of worship is all revealed in Vishnu Purana, Garuda Purana, Padma Purana and all that. In Skanda Purana, there's a lot of things about not just Subramanya, even about Shiva and all that, it comes there. And then the Itihasas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and there are quite a few texts that can be also, but the source of all that is the Shiva. Okay, so we have seen this. And just couple more and then probably we'll stop. I wanted to get to the rituals today, but looks like we won't. Another quiz. Spot the odd one out. Okay. Each of these is a religious assembly, right? So want you to be aware. First, all 5 are religious assembly. People, group of people in some religious. Because we don't have time, so I'm just not giving that much time. So obviously the odd one is 5. Okay, I think a couple of people the name, but I doesn't matter. Sumati or who did Gayatri was the first one, and then I think Ram Narayan followed by Nitya. Okay, because I promised that I will announce the names. Right? So see why they is odd one out, because if you see each one is a religious assembly, right? We are not against or for or anything like that here, but just see the difference. The first 4, these are assemblies of God. They are praying to a God, but either they are eyes closed or they are just together and making a collective prayer. But there, see, the first couple of them are Christian assembly. The third one is a Jewish assembly. The second one is an Islamic assembly, right? All these people are praying, nothing against the prayer or anything, but they are praying to a God. If in their mind, they are praying to a God in heaven, correct? But in 5, which is our typical Hindu prayer hall, see where they are looking. They are looking at an altar in the temple. So when we go to the temple, we don't go to the temple with the notion that we will assemble there to pray for a God in heaven, right? We go to the temple oh, this is Someshwara temple, this is Brihadishwara temple, right? Or this is Subramanya temple, right? And then that deity which is there, we pray to that Bhagavan. See, that's why others think that we are idol worshippers. And we already spoke about forms of worship, altars and all that. But you can see a temple is not just an assembly where you get collectively people to pray towards a god. So there is, it's not a led. These are, that's why they are called as organized religions, right? So you are taught what to pray, and then you collectively pray because you are praying to a God who is in heaven. So that's a big difference, right? A temple and an assembly of God. Both may have its own. So at this time, we are not debating either or which is right, which is wrong, but they are different. We need to understand. Last one, I think I spoke a little bit on this. With this, we'll stop. Okay, I promise you. I know we are little over time here. And some people, unfortunately, so but or shall we? Okay, I don't think there is a choice here, right? Okay, let me. Why don't I do this? Let's do this. This one in the next class. I wanted to bring something which is common. I will start with this in the next class. It's not non-Abrahamic. We will talk about it. Okay, so it's very interesting in terms of it's not to believe. Okay, so you keep thinking about this. Why don't I give this as a homework? Look at this picture. Think about this. What is unique? There's something common, right? These are totally different things. So you are seeing one lady putting a sindoor. The second one is the bilwa leaf. Third one is, so I'm giving you some hints. Okay, third one is the back of the cow. The fourth one is the entrance to a Hindu home. Okay, the reason I'm saying Hindu because of the carving and all that. The other one is a pada. There's some hint in that picture. And finally, the head of the elephant, right? So keep thinking. We'll see in the next class. Purnamada Purnamiram Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri